Okay. And before I get too much into Rhino, I just wanted to start in Miro and just like go through an overview of what we're going to talk about. So you've all seen these maps. Nadia's shared them with all of us, and we're going to be focusing on datascapes for this tutorial. And here are just some of the maps. You guys are doing a project in ArcGIS, and you're going to be having these data points of different sizes and different colors, and you want to turn it into 3D. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And we're going to do it manually for now. So we're going to draw the shapes on top of your base maps, and we're going to extrude them. We're going to change the colors. We're going to draw different shapes. So you have lots of options for data and how to visualize it to play with here. So we're going to do cylinders. We're going to do bubbles like this here, or kind of like this map here. We're also going to do cones like on this map of Miami. And then we're going to do these kind of like walls or extrusions of streets or lines you can use for like volume studies of different arterials or different subway lines. And again, what I'm showing you is how to do it manually. And I think that's important, especially for this level, to know how to do this all manually, because the same commands, if you want to do this automatically in Rhino, they're based in the same commands that you would use for the manual work. So, in Rhino, you can do really cool things like this, create forms out of these lines, and they can bend, using Grasshopper parametric design, so that they can bend and shape, and you can change them based on different volumes, for example. And then I have a little tutorial here for how to do some of that parametrically in Grasshopper. So it's really powerful stuff, and I just wanted to show you some of the like datascapes or whatever data mapping I was doing in Grasshopper and Rhino for my thesis. So I had like Toronto's downtown core, and in this map I was showing you like the skyline, and then depending on the time of day, depending on the time of year, you could see where the shadows were. And then you could aggregate that data into a map and show you during different times of year where the sun was going to be. So we're going to do fairly simple work now, but I just wanted to show you some of this stuff to help you imagine like what's possible for datascaping in Rhino, Grasshopper, and Ladybug. The possibilities are basically endless. Whatever you can imagine, somebody's probably done something similar in Rhino and Grasshopper, and if they haven't, there's like a whole open source community where people can, you can ask questions, and somebody can help you get to where you want to go online. And so I was getting into some of this for my thesis, like deep Rhino, deep Grasshopper stuff, but it's really fun, and I encourage you to all to do it if you have time. And if you don't have time now and you're undergrads, you'll have time to dig into it later. Okay, and the other thing we'll do is, if we have time, is we'll just do some of these basic form making exercises in Rhino, and again, we'll do it manually, just as you're developing some of your graphics. Maybe you want to use some of these like trees or vegetation ideas in your graphics. Okay. So let's get started by going back into Rhino and focusing on how to make some of these datascapes. Okay, let's go into Rhino. This is kind of what I'm going to show you how to do. I'm just going to show you the basics. Of course, the stuff I showed you in Miro, that stuff that Nadia shared, is a lot more full than these maps, but I just want to show you how to get to those visualizations with a few simple techniques. So that's that. Okay, let's make Rhino full screen. And when you open Rhino for the first time, you'll notice that there's like 4 of these views, right? And actually, let's just do it. Let's just open a new Rhino document. When you open it for the first time, it kind of looks like this, right? Pretty basic. You have 4 views. It's a 3D software, so you want to see what you produce from multiple different angles. So that's what this helps with. And if you want to focus on one view, you just have to like double click that view in the menu, or you can go back by clicking this 4 view here. You can also just drag the screen sizes to be however you want. I typically, I do work with all four screens, and I jump back and forth between the different viewports, and I'll show you as I'm working through that now, how I do it, and you know, you can use it however you like. The other thing you want to know here is that right now, for example, when I draw a sphere, so I'm just going to type in sphere, okay, center. When I draw my sphere, like this is a sphere. It doesn't look like a sphere because my perspective is on wireframe right now. So there's only one curve to that sphere. If I change my perspective to shaded, okay, I get more of that sphere shape. Now I want to change my perspective view to rendered. And again, rendered lets you see that full sphere as it is. And I'm orbiting around the sphere by just simply right-clicking on my mouse around the sphere, and you can orbit around it. Okay, I hit Command A or Control A to select everything and delete it. Let's start from scratch. Let's import a base map that you might have from ArcGIS and import it into Rhino and just start drawing on it. So again, like AutoCAD, you know, you guys are used to all these command line softwares now. You can use the command line to type whatever you want in to the command line, and you get that tool. So I'm gonna use the command picture, and that's gonna let me bring in a base map. So I find it in my filing system, open that. Just follow the rest of the commands in the command line here. And again, if you're on a PC and not on a Mac, you might have the command line somewhere else, like at the bottom, but it functionally does the same thing. So the next step of this command is first corner of the picture. Okay, I'll put it here at the crosshairs. Other corner of the picture, I'm going to put it here, somewhere here. And now, you know, we always talk about how super important scaling is for the work you do, especially when you're doing plan views or perspectives or drawings that are going to be used for construction or detailed drawings. Of course, you want to have a good scale, but because we're doing datascaping and data mapping across the entire city area of Manhattan, that's like multiple miles long, and you know, maybe scale isn't as important here for this like datascaping project. So we're going to leave it for now, but I'll leave it up to you. It's your judgment call when you want to use scale or not for data mapping. I think it's okay here for now, so we'll leave it. But again, if you wanted to scale this, all you would have to do is type in scale, select your base point for the scale, and just imagine that I'm drawing along a bar scale at the bottom here. So that's my first point of my bar scale, that's my second point, and I know that distance is going to be say 10 kilometers, and then just type in 10 and set my units to kilometers in Rhino, but that's huge. And I know that the units in my documents now are meters, so I'm just going to accept it at meters. But anyway, I just wanted to show you that because scaling is super easy, especially for base maps. Okay, great. We have this image back here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to start to trace some of these circles, and we're going to start to extrude them and turn them into cylinders. Okay, now to do that, let's focus on the top view because I want to make use of all of my screen's real estate. Before we get to that, does anybody have any questions? And you guys can just like interrupt. It's a small group, so I don't mind if you just like jump in and ask your question. And I assume in the meantime, silence is a good thing. You're understanding everything. But I'll ask you periodically throughout this tutorial if you have any questions. Okay, great. So let's start extruding some of these spheres, but before we extrude them, we actually need to have them as circles on the map. We need the line work before we extrude. I'm also going to just delete all of these layers and add layers as I draw, because I like to keep things properly organized in my layering system. It just makes everything easier, and I'll show you why in a second. So let's call this one a base map. Okay, so I select this layer, you know, it's selected here. Let's move the layer into base map. Okay, so select it again. Okay, great, layers and base map. And if I, this blue dot here lets me control which, as I add features to the map, it lets me control which layer the feature's in. I can also use other icons here, like the light bulb shows me the layer, makes the layer disappear. The lock icon locks the layer in. So let's lock it for now. Okay, let's add another layer for line work for the cylinders. Let's call this just sill lines. Okay, good enough for now. And let's make that my default layer. And let's start adding cylinder. Let's start adding, let's start with circles. So I just type in circle, click on the center of circle. Let's start tracing this circle here, center here, out to there. Okay, great. I have one circle. Let's draw the next circle. Start here, here. And you'll notice I'm just pressing on my space bar, and spacebar helps bring up the last command as your next command. So my last command was circle. So I can just draw a circle there, hit spacebar again, draw another circle here. I'm just gonna loosely define these circles. And again, when you're doing this might take you a few minutes to draw all these circles, but it's fine. Just do it. It's only gonna take a few minutes. But for now, I'll just keep it like this, keep it really simple. And actually, maybe I'm gonna use multiple layers here for the different circles. So sill lines, or sill circle large, and sill circle medium. I'm just going to keep 2 for now, but of course you have multiple different size circles here. I held down shift and I selected the 2 large circles and I moved them to sill circle large. And I select the rest of the circles and I'm just going to move them to sill line medium. And I'll show you why that's helpful. Now, if I want to, you're going to have lots of circles on here. If I want to select all the circles in the same layer, that's really easy to do. I just go to edit. And again, there's so many commands here and sometimes I get lost. So I just go into help and select, and in search, I type in select. Okay. And then I just like find that. Okay, that's where select is. So I'm going down to select objects by layer, sill circle large, select. That selects my 2 large circles. And again, if you have dozens of them in your map, it'll select all those dozens of objects in that layer. So that's great. Now let's go into perspective view. Okay, this is my perspective view. And again, I'm right clicking to use the orbit tool. And I'm going to go back into edit, select objects by layer. I'm going to select sill circle large. Oh, it didn't select. Oh, here, because I'm in perspectives, you can't see the line work if the perspective view is rendered. So let's go back to shaded. Okay, and let's go back, file, select objects by layer, sill circle large. Okay, see, they're both selected now. You know they're selected because they're highlighted in yellow. Next thing let's do is extrude these. So extruding is really easy. Just type in extrude. And you can extrude by surface. But since this is just a line, I remember we just drew a circle, we didn't draw a surface. So I'm going to extrude curve, hit enter. And I can manually type in exactly how high I want this curve to be. Or I can drag, use my mouse to indicate up and down where it should be. Okay, so there we go. I have my 2 cylinders. Pretty cool, pretty simple. Now let's select the other medium size circles. Let's just go into edit, select, objects by layer. Let's select medium. I have them selected, and I'm gonna just type in extrude surface. Or sorry, extrude curve, because these are just curves. And I'm gonna put them up like that. Okay, really simple. Now, what if you want to do them different heights? Again, you can use extrude to say exactly how high you want them. But if you just want to like one-off change the height of some of these image objects, you can actually use this gumball. And again, gumball is really a useful tool to use in Rhino, and you can just turn it on or off like this. So as you can see what the gumball is, right? It's that tricolored thing in the middle that helps me manipulate my objects in 3D and control them where I move them by x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. So it's a really useful thing. Without the gumball, you could get things lost in 3D, but with the gumball, you can control exactly where things are going to be. So I like to use the gumball, and again, I have these 5 objects selected, and I have the gumball highlighted. If I just want to select this one object, you would see the gumball for that object. Now here, let's use the gumball on these 5 items. So again, you can control where it moves on the x-axis and y-axis and z-axis. You can move things up and down, side to side, and that fixes it, right? If you just move them freely, they could get lost in the space. The other thing that's lets you do is move by two at once. So you see this little grid here, it's blue and green, this grid. So if you select that, that helps you move along the blue and the green axis only. And if you rotate a little bit, you'll get a red and blue grid, and that'll help you move along those axes only. The other thing gumball lets you do is rotate, which is really cool. So if you I'm just going to select these again. If you see these like semicircle lines or quarter circles, if you click and drag them, you can rotate images like that. You can rotate it along different axes. You don't need to do it so much for the cylinder exercise. I just wanted to show you how I use gumball, and it's super useful. Another thing that gumball does, which is amazing, is it lets you change the height and widths of your objects. So if I just want to change the height of my objects, you know, I can do that using the gumball along the Z axis, right? So that I click on the blue square here at the bottom, and I drag up and down to change the height of this, these objects. Really, really amazing way to manipulate your objects is the gumball. Now, I need to move these down because I changed their heights. So there we go. And I'm just going to change these heights again really quickly because they're smaller and I want them to be a little bit shorter for my graphic here. So I just manipulated the objects like that. Right. And now you can just imagine when you select multiple of these, you know, your gumball is still there. If you hold down Alt or Option on a Mac and you click on the gumball and do something with it, like move it up or down, that duplicates everything. See that? So I held down Alt, clicked on the green arrow, and I moved everything up and down, and that duplicated it. So it's getting pretty full and busy now. But again, you want to make this reflective of the data that you had in ArcGIS, right? Your graphics and visualizations are more meaningful if they're telling a story through data. So don't just do any random thing, actually ground it in something so you can speak to the value of the graphic you're producing. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to start to play with the colors. And this is why it was important to have different layers, because you can manipulate the colors by layers, and I'll show you. Let's go down to rendered mode so you can see what it looks like that. The default color is white with a matte finish or a plaster-like finish. Really beautiful. But if you want to just go and start customizing it, you can do that. So let's take these two and make sure they're in the right layer. Circle large, right? They should have been there in the first place. go down to circle large, the layer that they're in, and see this little white circle here that's showing you the material that you're using to define those objects. So let's double click it. And you get a list of default materials here. It depends on, I like plaster because it's matte, but if you just like chose gem is okay because they're slightly see-through, and you can make them like that. Right, but maybe that is not exactly what you want for this exercise. Maybe you want to show something that's a little more custom, a little bit more red. So let's choose red circle large again, and let's go down and add a new material, custom, right? So I went into materials, I selected this drop down, and I clicked this add button, and I hit custom. Color, let's choose a dark red color. Great. Let's also make it a little bit transparent, right? So let's maybe make 10% transparency. Apply. Okay, that's a little bit closer to what we want, right? Okay, now let's go down into these smaller ones. There's 3 of them. Actually, let's just change all of these. Getting a phone call from Mississippi. I don't know who it is. Leave it at that. Make sure it's in the right layer. Circle, cylinder, circle, medium. Great. Go down to default materials, make a custom material, custom. Let's change the color to a lighter red, like that. And let's also give this a 10% transparency. Okay, that should be fine. And then there you go. Again, try and choose colors that work nicely together. Maybe these ones clash a little bit too much. But anyway, I just wanted to show you exactly how to draw these circles, extrude them, and change their color. So I think that's that. While we're here, here's another thing that we can do. Because if you can imagine this map is going to start to clash a little bit, right? You have the red on the base map, and then you have the red cylinders up top, and it's just much. So if you're going to keep your base map, and I do suggest having some context for this data visualization stuff, but if you want to keep this base map, I'll show you really quickly how to just mute it a little bit. So it's not as crazy. So to allow me to manipulate the base map, I have to unlock it. I would bring this base map into Photoshop and remove the color and decrease the saturation, right? You know how to do that already. You're in 4th year. You can go into Photoshop and go hit Control U, decrease the saturation, really easy. So I won't show you how to do the Photoshop part, but I'll show you how to flip this map out. So here, this map's texture is actually this image. So I click the base map, I click the texture icon or the materials icon. It's C-type picture, and I just choose a different base map for it. And I went into Photoshop and I edited the color out of this base map, and I got this base map here. So when you're showing us, when you're doing this kind of work, I suggest making sure that you get the user to focus on the data rather than focus on the background context. So this might be helpful for you. Okay. So let's lock the base map again, and let's delete all of these cylinders because we're going to do something else now. We're going to do spheres. Any questions so far? Many ways to. There's so many ways you can do things in Rhino, right? You can just draw the circles and extrude them, or you can just draw straight up the cylinders and just type in cylinder. Base of cylinder here. That's the center point. You want to do the outside point, click there and pull it up. And again, if you're drawing straight in the right layer, you'll get the right colors right away, right? So I just move this to the right layer. Let's hit let's hit spacebar, and again, see the blue is selected here for sail circle large. And I'm just going to draw this cylinder now. Right, so you can just keep doing that. Really simple. Now, if I want to draw the light circles, I just type in cylinder again. I'm on circle medium because I know that my color is proper there for my material palette. And I just draw them like that. Really simple. Right? Super simple. So now you have multiple techniques to do this. This should only take you a few minutes to fully populate this map. Anything else? Okay, I'll start to do some of the spheres now. And while we're here, I wanted to show you, just like in AutoCAD, Rhino has a selection tool that differs based on direction you select from. So remember, if you select from the bottom, if you select from the left, sorry, from the right down, anything that your mouse touches or the selection area touches will be selected. If you select from the left down or left up, you have to fully contain items to have it selected, right? So from left down, see how my selection tool half covers the cluster of cylinders on the right, but they're only the cylinders that are fully selected are going to be actually selected with a left select versus a right select. Right select, again, selects everything that the selection tool touches. Okay, great. And because the base map is fixed, it's locked, it's not going to be selected. So let's delete all that. All right. So same thing. Let's just draw the spheres straight in here. Let's type in sphere, center of sphere, click where you want it, click out. There you go. You have your sphere. And again, you're drawing it kind of halfway up into the space map. And at the end, I'll show you how to delete that if it bothers you. And again, I want this sphere to be dark red, so we'll do it like that. We'll put, so I just made sure it's in the right layer, and that made it dark red. Let's just draw a few more spheres. Right, and again, I'm just selecting to keep drawing the spheres. I'm just hitting space bar, and that's going to let me keep drawing my spheres. Okay, now I want to draw spheres in the light red color, so I'll put down circle medium. I type enter, and then those spheres are in the light color. And again, these are the smaller ones. And again, while I'm here working on the layers, let's add another layer and call it circle small. Let's start drawing it, and let's make a custom color here. Custom color, let's make it like a really light red, like that. And transparency up to 10%, apply. And now that my blue circle, this blue circle signifies I'm drawing in this layer, anything I draw will be that color. So I'm just gonna type in sphere again from the sphere. And there we go, it's all in the color. So pretty simple. And now again, if you want to get rid of the spheres on the bottom half of this image because you want to show perspective and you don't want those spheres to be sticking out the bottom, you can easily do that. How I would do that is I would just select the spheres, right? So I selected them and I would type in split, hit enter, select cutting objects. I'm going to use the base map to cut, and so to use the base map I have to unlock it. So I unlocked the base map, I selected it, that's my cutting object, and I hit enter. And now everything at the bottom is a separate object. So again, I'll just select it all, delete, and there you go. You only have half spheres now. sitting on top. So it's pretty simple. Spheres and cylinders can kind of work the same way. You can use these techniques. You can also just draw, you know, if you wanted to put just spheres on top, you can, right? So I just type in sphere. I draw it there. You know, you just have to move the base map down to have your sphere sitting on top. And again, you can delete all these other spheres if they're noise. You know how to do that now. More, right? And then again, you can use the gumball to manipulate this sphere. Gumball on, off. Great, gumballs are on. I selected the sphere, see the gumball on it, and you can just start moving it around however you want. And again, you can hit Alt on your keyboard, and that'll help you multiply this. And again, you can change the size of this. If you hold down Alt while you change the size with the square part of the gumball, or sorry, if you hold on Shift, it'll scale down equal proportionately along all sides. If you don't hold down Shift, it'll scale down in a really funny way like this, right? You don't want it to do that. Okay, great. So those are the circles. Okay, all right. So next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to make the cones. This is kind of fun. It's really easy to do, and I'll show you how to do that. So let's start with a surface. So I click surface point. I'm just gonna draw a surface. I'm gonna create a new layer first. Let's call this cone surface. So I draw a point up here. My second point is here. I'm just going to draw a surface right along this base map. Hit enter. So I drew the cone surface in the circle small layer. So let's actually move it down to cone surface layer. So I select it, cone surface layer, and again it's white. But I'm going to change that to, let's change it to like a yellow or something. Apply. Okay, and then so now you can see it's there, but because it's in the exact same position as the base map, it's looking a little funny like this. But that's fine. Let's leave it for now. The base map is locked. We're not going to interfere it. And this is where it gets fun because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a grid on this base map, and I'm going to show the points of that grid, and I'm going to pull up those points to make cones. Okay, so it's really easy. You just type in rebuild. Rebuild surface, right? So I have the surface selected. I'm rebuilding it. I want to make a grid of, let's start with 30 by 30. Okay, rebuild. So now on this shape, I have a grid of 30 squares by 30 squares. And maybe they're not squares because it's not a perfectly square base to begin with, but that's okay. And I'm going to type in points on. So what points on lets me do is it shows me all the intersections of that grid. And I'm going to just select one, and I'm going to pull it up just like that. And that's 1 point. Now I'm going to select this one. Surface point, I pull up, and that's another point. I'm going to select this other one and pull it up. There we go. Now what if I see how it, like, from that point it pulls up that point and all the points surrounding it, right? So what if I want a smaller grid than that? I can do that too, but I can just type in rebuild again. Hit enter. Okay, let's just select the surface, hit rebuild. And I can increase the granularity. So let's make this 60 by 60 now. Hit enter. And then points on. Points on. So now my grid is much more refined, as you can see by the points. And when I pull up my surface points, they draw on from a much smaller area. than they did before. Hit enter. You can also, this is kind of annoying to look at sometimes, right? All the points, it's a little distracting. So if you want to get rid of it, you just type in points off. Points are gone. And again, we can hide the base map and you can just see, you can see that. Or if you want to show the base map, you can just pull it up slightly. And now let's again, cut this surface by the base map. So here's my surface. I type in split, select cutting objects. Well, I'm going to use my base map to cut. So I select the base map, hit enter. And now these are two separate shapes, right? So I just cut the bottom off using the base map. And now you only have the cones on top. And again, just like your other objects, you can use the gumball to multiply and reproduce these objects here. And put them wherever you want. Okay, pretty straightforward. Different right, so I'm just changing the translucency now of these. I just went into materials and I went down custom material. I changed the color to yellow or whatever color you want and increase the transparency to like 10% or whatever. And then everything in that layer has a transparency now. See that? Really simple. Okay, so that's that. If there are no questions, and again, you know, you can ask your question in the chat or just unmute yourself. I'm gonna move on to drawing some of the lines to show like volume data on the streets, like traffic data, passenger data on like subway trains, that kind of thing. And there's a couple of ways to do this. I'll show you two different ways to do this, and let's lock my base map again. Lock the base map, and I'm going to create a new layer called streets. Street lines. And I'm going to draw on that layer. Okay, so let's use the tool curve. So I'm just going to type in curve, and I'm just going to start tracing some of these streets. So let's start with whatever the street is, 9A. I don't know Manhattan. Maybe you do. I'd like to know it more though. Enter, so that's a line. And let's actually go into shaded view so we see some of these lines. And let's delete these circles because I don't need them anymore. So this is the line I just drew. Let's draw another one. Another line. So I'm just going to type in curve to draw another line. Let's draw this street here. Okay, enter. And then let's draw Broadway, because that's a pretty popular street in New York, right? And it's the one that goes diagonally. Hit enter. And let's just draw a few more, because it'll just make this visualization thing a little bit easier for us to imagine. Hit enter. And then let's just draw one coming from this way, just so we can have lines kind of all over the place. Enter. Okay, now all these lines are in street lines. So if I go to edit, select objects by layer, I can select street lines. They're all selected. I'm just going to do something really, really simple and call it, type in a command called pipe. My pipe radius is 1 meter. Sure, let's see what it looks like at 2 meters. That's too big. Okay, so let's hit undo, Control Z or Command Z or Z, and type in pipe again. Pipe. Let's make my pipe radius 0.5. That's that. So that kind of looks like the subways in New York. Now something weird happened here, right? Because I was drawing my curves above the base map. Make sure your curves are exactly where you want them to be. when you're drawing, so you don't do something like this. But anyway, I just want to show you like pipe, because it helps you create these lines. So this is cool if you want to show like underground subways of New York or something. I don't know, that would be fun. Floating up in the sky just to help visualize them. And let's move them into a different layer, right? So that they can change colors. Let's move these into a layer we have that's yellow. And let's go from perspective into rendered so we can see the yellow. It's kind of cool like that, right? Street lines, let's move them to cone surfaces. Okay, that's that. Now there's other ways to do it too. If you don't want to do circles, if you want to do squares, that's fine. That's really easy to do. Also, let's go to the top view. Let's delete these lines. Okay, and let's draw straight on this base map. Let's unlock the base map. Actually, let's keep it locked. Keep it locked. And then let's type in curve. So I'm just tracing on here. Right. Hit enter. If I want to draw a more square shape now with edges instead of circles like I did with pipe, I can just select the line and type offset. Like in AutoCAD, you have the offset tool. And let's offset it by 0.5 meters. Okay, enter. And then now I have these two lines. I can select both of the lines and use the command loft. What the command loft does, it creates a surface between two lines. Hit enter. Okay, and if I put this into cone surface, all right, and I go into the rendered view, I should see that that surface is yellow now. Great. And let's go into perspective. Okay, there it is. It's sitting on top. You can move it back down to wherever you want it to be, like there. And then once my surface is selected, I can just type in extrude surface. Extrude surface. Like that. Hit enter, and that helps me extrude my shape up and down. Okay. And again, because my blue line was in street maps, it created this extrusion in street lines, but I want it to be in cone surfaces just because I know that's where my color is. So if I move it into the right layer, then I get my color too. So really simple. Now you know how to draw these like volume lines in like manually using curves if you want to draw them with like edges, or you can use the pipe command to draw them as circles. So you have your choice now, which is cool. And again, you can do this manually to create different widths for different streets if you want to. Or if you really want to get into it, I suggest doing it in Grasshopper, because throughout these lines you can set values and you can decide, Grasshopper can help you decide how the value should look. So maybe it will be a little bit wider in the center and a little bit narrower on the bottom, right? Depending on like boardings and for like a train, for example. If it's busier, you want the line to be wider. If it's less busy, you want it to be narrower. So in Grasshopper, you can do things like that. But for now, you know how to do it manually. So that's that. Any questions?